According to neuroscience, humans are biologically wired for connection, meaning our brains are naturally inclined to seek and maintain relationships with other people. And while most humans are considered wired for connection due to our biological need for social interaction, some individuals may exhibit traits that make it more difficult for them to form these deep connections, which actually lead them towards a preference for solitude or limited social connections, essentially not feeling as strongly driven to seek out close relationships with others than the average person. But what is average nowadays? Well, our need for social connection is so important that we've evolved a signaling mechanism that lets us know when we need more of it. That feeling of loneliness. That tells us that our basic need for social connection isn't being met. Just like hunger and thirst are signals that we need food and water, loneliness is the signal that we need connection. And the signal is deep rooted in our brain. But not everyone's getting the same signals, especially those who are considered neurodivergent. People with neurodivergent conditions might experience sensory overload or challenges with social cues, making forming connections really difficult. Just like some miss the hunger cues, others might miss the cues that tell them they need connection. Thus, they don't feel lonely. They'll tell you they love being alone and never feel lonely. So, where's their need for social connection? It seems like some of us can get by on social starvation. Perhaps those brain receptors that were supposed to be wired to social connections are not communicating the same, just like the hunger cues. Some of us know we're hungry, but nothing in the fridge is speaking to us that we want to eat. Or to eat something takes effort and energy that we don't have. Just like the signal that you're hungry, but you might not be craving anything in particular. You might get that signal of loneliness that cues social connection, but maybe no connections can be found. And to even go out there and form those connections take effort and energy that maybe you don't have. So some of us learn to go without. Just like social connection is hardwired in most people, and they'll tell us that it is hardwired in everyone, but I disagree. I think that the need for social connection is not hardwired in everyone. If someone has a history of trauma, which more neurodivergent people do, those past experiences of betrayal or abuse can lead to a distrust in other people, making individuals really hesitant to open up and form close bonds. Some people struggle with massive, crippling social anxiety and they're terrified of people. They're afraid of connection. They fear they'll be abandoned or pushed away. Being around groups is often outright painful because rather than feeling connected, they actually feel isolated from them. But then we get into personality traits. Introverted individuals may naturally require less social interaction, and they prefer more intimate social circles. But here's the truth. Even if someone appears to not crave connection, it doesn't mean they don't value meaningful relationships with other people. They just don't need it as much, and they can actually get by on much less social connection. And to a large degree, that's actually more beneficial for them and for their nervous systems. But for real, I'm tired of hearing about how our brains were evolved for connection and conditioned for survival based on connections with other humans. Because it seems as though many people's brains have evolved differently. And I think that's the biggest reason why people feel so isolated in this difference. So to continue teaching humans about humans in this way is a little bit detrimental, especially for neurodivergent people, because it keeps us limited with these beliefs about ourselves that something is wrong with us because we don't crave social connection. I'm curious about someone who's recovering from trauma who might no longer be wired towards survival in the same way. For them, survival means avoiding social connections. And we all know that when one goes down the path of trauma healing, that it becomes a very spiritual thing. And what happens in our evolution of human consciousness? We then become wired towards self-compassion, self-care as our primary source of survival. We develop these higher states of perceptions and perspectives we don't view connecting with other people in the same way. We may have a desire for connection, but the connections we choose has become very selective. We can't satisfy our need for connection from just anyone. Our intuition becomes stronger than our trauma responses. And as a result, we hone a sense of inner connection. And we come to learn that connection with plants, nature, animals, and very few humans is what is best for us. So please stop teaching us your outdated lessons from the 1970s about how we're all conditioned for survival with the need for connection with other humans, and start acknowledging the other ways that we do connect that are not necessarily with other human beings. Start exploring the other ways our brains have been developing and adapting to the ongoing generational cycles of trauma. We are ever changing and evolving while at the same time still very ignorant of the capacities and capabilities that humans possess. And with that, we have to come to a new realization that the ways in which humans connect with one another has changed and will continue to change.